Okay, so this is like the very intro to Rhino, the super basic stuff, which obviously we need to know. So this is the interface of Rhino. Okay, as you can see, there's 4 windows when you open up Rhino. Maybe when you open up, there's a little window before this that tells you, well, what are the units you're going to use, no? So probably it tells you something like large objects, centimeters, large objects, inches, etc., etc. Okay, so maybe in that case, you want to select approximately what is the scale of the object you want to do. We're going to do a building interior. So it's normally like a large object, and obviously you want to use feet. I think sounds like a proper thing to have, no? Good. When you click on those units, you're going to have 4 windows, as I said before. This is what you see right now. When you click with the left button of your mouse on the windows, the letter here on top left of the window turns blue. That means that you are actually working on that particular view. This is 4 views of the same space. This is similar to AutoCAD or to 3D Max or to many other, like SketchUp, I think has similar approach, and Revit similar, etc., etc. No? If you want to work only in one of those views, you will double click on the letters, on the text, on the word that says perspective, top, front, or right. So if I double click on the word perspective, then expands that window and you can work on that particular window alone. Okay, you can go back to for windows by double clicking again the same word. And if you want to expand the top view, you double click on the word top. You can go down to front view. This is again a front top views of the same space. So you can imagine you will be seeing elevations here. You will be seeing the top view, or it's called a plan. And you will see the right view or right elevation. Okay. Professionals or people that work in Rhino a lot, they tend to work only in perspective, and they can pretty much do everything using just the perspective view. Also on the bottom here, you have the same changes. You can go to the top view, to the right view, to the perspective, etc., etc. You can also use Control Tab if you have a PC, or Command Tab to go from perspective to top. I'm now controlling tabbing now to front, to right, to perspective. Okay. While you're in perspective, the way you move around the space is using your mouse. So that's why I recommend that you do have a mouse always when you use a 3D modeling software. If you right click on the mouse, you'll be orbitating. If you use the center scroll button, you can zoom in and zoom out. If you press Shift with the left hand and right click, you can pan. And the left button is going to allow you to select stuff if you had any stuff on the scene. You can select the same way as in AutoCAD, which is from top right to bottom left. You can touch things, I guess, and from top left to bottom right, you can grab things, or you can hold it in the interior of that box. We'll see selection later on as well. Okay, we see a toolbar. It's called the main toolbar on the top and horizontally here. This has like the very basic stuff. You can jump from one to another, like standard, see plane, set views. This becomes overwhelming as in the number of buttons that you have. We can stay in the standard with no problem altogether and not move from there. As you can see already, you already know some of the buttons. This is the Orbitate, so you don't have to go up there and click Orbitate and then use your left button to Orbitate, because you know there's a shortcut, which is the right click. The same as pan, we're going to use shift and right, and you can zoom. Instead of clicking and going to the zoom button, you're going to actually use the scroll button. It makes much more sense. If you want to change elevations, you can use this little car button that you can span. Any of these buttons that have a little triangle on the bottom right, I don't know if you remember from Adobe, they expand many other tools within them. So for example, the little car has a triangle. If I expand that, has many tools inside. The cars, it's just a little bit of a little image that shows you, okay, if you want to see the view, elevation, right, elevation, left, back, front, and axonometric and top. So those the same things that I just mentioned a second ago, that you can use these buttons down here, or double click to go to the 4 views, etc., etc. Okay, so that's the top column, the same as in Adobe. All of the toolbars here on the left, these are more like actions. Actions, and you want to create something that's like an action. If you want to edit something, such as cut, paste, whatever, all of that stuff is here. What is on the right, you're going to have the properties. Again, that's very similar in many softwares. You have the properties. If you select an object, you're going to have all of the properties of that object. You have the layers, which in my case, I only have 1 layer. It's called default. Maybe you have more layers as a default depending on the software. And then name views, we will talk about this later on. Important is obviously the layers. And properties is also important, but if you know your layers, that's great. There's another important section in the interface. There's 2 more actually. One is up here where it says command. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a little blinking like line to the right of the command button. You see that? So this is the same as AutoCAD. And I don't know if you use command in the command line in AutoCAD, but you should if you're not doing it. Basically, you write down whatever you want to do, no? Like I want to cook eggs, and you put I want to cook eggs. You press enter, and the software will cook the eggs for you. You know that one, no? So if you want to do like something such as a box, let's do it all together now. I will start typing BO. And notice how the same as AutoCAD, Rhino starts popping up some options here. All of these are the tools that start with the BNO, or similar ones that they contain the BNO. If you finish with box, you're going to see box and box edit 2 tools. You don't necessarily have to go with the mouse all the way here and click on box. You can just press enter once you're done with the toolbar. I pressed enter right there. Okay, Rhino is a little bit like military, like any software. So you just have to follow the steps. And you might ask, what steps should I follow? Whatever the program tells you to do, you do. In the beginning, it's going to be, I have to read what says up here. But later on, because you've done it like 1,000 times, you're going to do it much faster without reading. But let's start reading what it says. No? It says first corner of base. So you're going to click with the left button of the mouse. The second you click, the message changes and it says other corner of base or length. I want to click again with the left button of the mouse always. And then automatically changes the message and it says height. Yeah, I can drag in with the mouse slightly up and click whenever I want with the left button of the mouse. We created our first box. Okay, so I'm gonna pause this. You can do several boxes right now, as many as you want. Okay, it's very simple. Again, type box, and knowing that it's the same process all along, which means type in what you want to do and then follow instructions, I would like you to try to do not only a box, but maybe a pyramid. I don't know, maybe a sphere. All of those are quite, intuitive what you have to write down. So again, write down the thing, sphere, you click on enter, and then you follow instructions. So let's try for a couple of minutes to do some stuff. Again, if you have any questions, just raise your hand on the. Okay, so those are, for example, the tube. I can click on tube, base of tube, that means where the base is. I click, radius 1, radius 2, height.
Professor, I have a quick question.
No.
So you don't have to stay on.
Okay, so we have several objects. Now creating very basic objects is quite simple, but that you just click and follow instructions. We can transform them, no? As you know, in all of these softwares, the three main ways to transform something basically will be moving, scaling, no, and things like that. Potentially should be easy to do, no? So how do we do that? We're gonna actually type down exactly what we want to do. So we're gonna say move, the command. I'm gonna press enter. And we follow instructions, as I said before, you select objects to move. For example, I said with the left button you select. When you select something in Rhino, it turns yellow. Okay, once you select, if we follow instructions, it says press enter when you're done. Enter, and I say point to move from. I can move it from here to here. Clicking 2 times. So let's do that several times. Again, move, the command, enter. I select the object, press enter when done. Point to move from here. Point to move to here. Copy, it's another obvious command. You say, this is very similar to AutoCAD. You press copy, say select objects to copy. So I'm going to select the cylinder. Press enter when you're done. In the same way, point to copy from, click, point to copy to. You move the cursor in there. It's almost like moving, but it keeps the original one, whatever it is. A shortcut to repeat the last command in AutoCAD, I think, is exactly the same. You press enter again and repeats the last command that you actually inserted. In this case, it was copy. So there we go. I have copy again. Press enter. And you say point to copy from, point to copy to. Potentially, you can copy as many times as you want. Just you have to press escape once you're done with the number of copies that you want. Okay. So now we're going to do a little exercise. I'm going to actually copy a pyramid, this pyramid, and I'm going to copy it on top of itself. Let's see if we can do that. If I say copy, Press enter when done. I'm copying this pyramid. You might have another object, a box, or whatever it is. I can copy it from this point to the top of itself. And here's what we need in order to do this simple move. We need to understand what happens here all the way in the bottom. We need to have what is called O-snap on. You see where it says grid snap, ortho, planner, O-snap, smart track, Gumball, record history. So if it's highlighted in bold letters, that means that yes, you're working with those. But if it's not highlighted, it means that you're not O-snapping. O-snap stands for object snap, as in attracting to. So make sure you click on O-snap and then you have that term in bold letters. And then you need to also click or check the boxes of the points that you want to be attracted to. In my case, I have as a default end, point, mid, center, intersection, perspective, but I don't have near, tangent, and quad. You don't have to have these ones. Just make sure you have end point and midpoint. Some of those click because they're very useful. Why do we need this? Well, if I want to actually copy an object, such as this pyramid, on top of itself exactly, the only way is to snap to things. So if I say copy, press enter when done, I can go exactly to that point, to this point of the pyramid, where it says and an intersection. I click the left button of the mouse, and then I can go to the top where it says again and an intersection and click again. Escape. This is the only way to make sure that this meeting point is precise. Not approximately, not I think it's cool enough. Why would I bother? When it comes to detailing in the future, you need to make sure this is exactly snapping to those points. So I'll do it again. I'm going to do it now with the box. By the way, to delete, you select and you press delete. If I want this box to be copied on top of itself exactly, I need to say copy. I need to snap to the point of the first selection. And in order to snap, it needs to say there's something. You see how it says end int? That means that it's snapping, it's attracted to that point. Click. And then you don't have to be in a hurry. You know, you can just wait, take your time. You can even orbitate or pan around. Think about life, you know. No rush. I say, where do I want to take the box? I want to take it on top of itself. So I need to snap it to that very point on top. You see the snap, it says end, intersection, click. If I want to copy more upwards, I could potentially do it because you know you have many options to copy. And there you go, you have your tower of boxes. So let's all try to do this. Copy an object or a box or a pyramid, whatever you want, on top of itself exactly, not approximately, but exactly. Okay, let's move on to, for example, layer management and how do we see this in different ways. If you click on the little triangle to the right of the perspective title of the window, you have also many options, and we will see several of those soon. Oh, interesting. This is one place we're going to be seeing things such as set the camera. You can also go back to changing the views that we talked about before. We're going to be able to save different views by going to set view, and we'll come here to done. So it's good to know that there's actually a set of tools that come under the triangle to the right of perspective or to the right of left, right, top views, okay? If you want to see in different ways the objects in display within Rhino, we can go to this little option and click on the triangle to expand the different options here. So normally, as a default, you start in wireframe view, but you can see your objects in many other ways, such as shaded. Interesting. I don't know if it happens to you as well. So because I downloaded the free version, I can't see this in shaded view. I don't know if it works for you. Does it work when you click on shaded view, rendered view? Maybe that's a funny thing. Okay, so when you have the Rhino version, you will be able to see shaded view here and many other ways to see the different objects. Let me know if it's working for you or not. Maybe you also have the safe mode view, no? Okay, there's different ways to see different objects that you have in front. Okay, let's think about the layers now. If we go to the layers management, we can
Professor, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When I did the wireframe.
Okay, so that is again, to change layers, you select an object, you right click on the layer that you want to take it to, change object layer. You can change the color of that layer, you can lock it or turn it off. Let's say you have many things in one single layer, you can select all of those things, right click on the layer you want to take it, change object layer, and again you can change the color, and all of those objects will be in that layer. You can turn them off or lock them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you put the object to a specific layer?
Yeah, select the object.
Yeah.
And right click on the layer you want to take it to.
Oh, right click, okay.
Right click. And there's a bunch of options there. But the one we want is change object layer.
Okay.
Now notice that we can talk about that right now. If you right click on a layer, you have set current. That means that this check that is under the default option will be set down here. What does that mean? That means that whatever you do, you will be doing it in that layer. So let's say I create, let me give it a color, magenta. If I want to say sphere, for example, center sphere and radius, that object that I created was created in layer 5. You can also right click and delete the layer. You can rename, you can create a sub layer, which something we can see later on. You can duplicate the layer. You can select the objects in that layer. Imagine you have 1,022 objects in a layer. You just have to right click and select all of the objects. You don't have to go one by one, no? Okay. With a bunch of stuff that I'm sure you have in your screen, it comes a moment where zooming in and zooming out becomes a little tricky. So when you're far away and you have a lot of things, maybe sometimes you want to select on the thing you want to zoom in at and start using shortcuts. For example, zoom, there's a shortcut Z, and then you press enter. And then notice how when I was talking about the instructions, like it says drag a window to zoom, I could create a window to go right there. Or I could choose any of these options or sub options that you can find in parentheses afterwards. One of them is selected. That will take me directly to the object I selected. So again, I'm zooming out far away, and I want to go and see that cylinder. I can say Z, enter, and then select. But even faster, if I want to zoom into this cube, I can select it, Z, enter, and notice how every single sub-command, those that are in the parentheses, have a little line underneath the first letter or one of the first letters. That's the second letter to use for the shortcut. If you check out the word selected, it has an S. So I don't have to go all the way up there. I can just click S and press enter, and it will go directly there. No? Also, if I do Z, enter, there's another sub option, all. A-double-L, the first one. The A has a little line underscoring. I click A and enter, extends. I can go extend, zoom, enter, extend, enter. So I can go back and forth, zoom, enter, select S, enter, zoom, enter, E as in extend, enter. Again, I select an object, zoom, enter, select S, enter, zoom, enter, extend, enter. It's a very quick and fast way of zooming to an object and moving out to the world. Zoom, enter, select, enter, zoom, enter, extend, enter. Back and forth. It makes things very fast. If you also combine it with the orbitating and a little bit of zooming in and out, everything becomes super dynamic and quite fast to work with. Okay, we have a bunch of things here. I could potentially select them all and delete. You also have obviously the command Z to go back, like in any other software. Mm-hmm. Okay. Other basic things in Rhino include, well, you can create curves, for example, which is the two-dimensional drawings. Imagine AutoCAD. You could potentially do almost everything that AutoCAD does in Rhino. So for example, if I go to the top view, you can also go down here. I can start creating curves, no? So curve is a command. If I press enter, it says start of curve. So I can create a curve. Okay, that's a curve command. Notice how when I was clicking on the top view, what I was basically clicking or typing is on the grid, which is, by the way, called C-plane. So when I go to the perspective, everything is corresponding with the C-plane there. Now that's the curve, but I can use the Polyline command, similar to also AutoCAD, and start creating polylines. You have to press enter at the end. And that's when, in 2D is when it becomes very useful to understand the ortho, which I think you can imagine what it is, because it's exactly the same as in AutoCAD. If I say Polyline, and I click ortho, highlights in bold letters, whatever I draw, it's 90 degrees, no? Maybe depending on your settings, you have also the 45 degrees drawing, no? So ortho is good to create lines and polylines that are orthographic. But it's also good if you want to move something, select an object, move, and move it in 90 degrees orientation. Well, obviously, if you create a line that intersects with another line, you will have the trim option. So you just type trim, press enter, and you follow instructions like always. You click on the line, which is the cutting object, press enter when done, and you click on the object you want to cut. No? Trim is quite useful. Extend, no? I'm drawing a line, command line. I create a line by clicking 2 times here. Extend, it's another command. Press enter, select to where I want to extend my line, and then press enter when done, select. So we have trim, we have extend. Think of all those that you can deal with in AutoCAD, and all of those are going to be present in Rhino. Maybe they change slightly. For example, extend, maybe you don't select first one thing and then the other one. Maybe it's the inverse, but essentially it's exactly the same logic. If I want to create a line and I want to start from the middle point, well, you need to just go to the O snap, make sure you have mid point snapping checked, and it will give you that little sign that says mid. You can click there, and I could do my trim or whatever I want to do. Trim, select, press enter, and done. Okay. We have many other geometries, two-dimensional geometries. If you expand the circle, you have like 12 different ways of doing circles, which is sometimes useful, other times not so much. But you can just create the circle as usual. You can create a line or any object from the center of a circle. Obviously, you just make sure that O snap, your center option is checked. You click there. I can get rid of ortho if I want to. And you also have ellipses, have any other type of polylines or line methods to create. Many types of curves, if you want to create a curve on a surface. But in general, the curve command will give you something like this. which is basically a spline, it's called. No? You can create also other geometries, rectangles of different kinds, you know. You can do, well, in AutoCAD, the fillet is quite straightforward. So here as well, no? If you use the fillet command, you can click the radius, which is the sub option. You say 2 or whatever radius you want, and then click and click 2 times to create a fillet there, no? So that's very, very similar, if not identical, to AutoCAD. You have also chamfers, you have also mirrors. I mean, that kind of makes sense. If you want to do a mirror of an object, you will select the object, you will type mirror, and then normally a mirror requires basically a plane of mirroring. Because we're in 2D, we just create a line. And there you go, the mirror of that object is created. I could do a mirror of many objects. Right there. Control C there. Rotate. The command rotate can be typed. You obviously need a center of rotation, the same as in AutoCAD. You will click on the point of the center, and then it uses reference points, so you can click once and then rotate, click twice. You can do all of these things manually or numerically. I can select this box and say rotate, enter, center of rotation, and then I can say from here, I'm going to type 90 degrees. I don't want to do it manually. I want to do this numerically. Say 90, you type the number, and you press enter. Move on. I want to talk about 2 more important commands, and then I'll do what I was mentioning before. It's an important command, which is extrude. And I'm sure you all think what it is, and you know what it is. So let's go for it. If I do a rectangle, for example, the command rectangle, or you can actually go to the button if you know where it is, and I create a simple rectangle. I'm going to double click so I see that rectangle from all of the views, just to see what happens. I'm going to zoom, extend, so it goes directly to the rectangle. Any 2-dimensional or flat curve or polyline can be actually extruded. Extruded means to create a surface that goes in one direction. So if I actually type extrude, it's going to say select curves to extrude. I'm going to select, for Rhino, by the way, curve and rectangle is the same thing, is the general term curve for the software. So don't think that curves does not include rectangles. All of it, all line drawings are curves for Rhino. I am going to select the rectangle, press enter, and then it's going to tell me extrusion distance. I can place a number or I can do it manually. For now, let's say 10 if I want to do a numeric extrusion. Okay. If I select actually that extruded element, I can move it to the side, command move, click one point, go to another point. So I'm moving that extruded object. notice that the original rectangle is still there. Okay, so this is how Rhino works. Everything that you do, the original set of elements are remaining, okay? This is good, and sometimes you just have to be careful. It becomes a little like weird sometimes, but if you manage to actually properly layer everything, you can call this like a working lines or similar. It is a good thing to have because you might need it in the future. But be careful, if I Control Z, the box is on top of a curve, and that means that there are two objects in the same exact place. Okay, that's why sometimes when you click on an object in Rhino, it pops up this little window. It's telling me, hey, right there where you're clicking, there are two things. One, there's a curve, and another one, extrusion. As you hover on top of each of those elements, they change their color. That's how you know whether you're going to select one or the other one. Be careful, sometimes you might have like 23 things on the same place. So you will hover until you select the one you want. For example, the extrusion. Okay, so the extrusion means going from a two-dimensional and planar curve to a solid, in this case, like a box. Okay, I'm going to delete both. I could potentially do a curve if I type curve and actually create a funky thing here and finish where I started the curve to create this funky looking curvilinear thing. This curve, I can extrude it as well. And again, any curve that is two-dimensional and planar, I can actually extrude. Extrude curve. I can drag it up or down manually, or I can actually type a height, let's say 35. Okay. There's my new solid. I could move it, or I could do whatever I wanted with that. I can also delete it. So extrusions are very powerful. If I create, for example, a rectangle and then another rectangle inside of the first one, like what I have here, let me put in a different layer so you can see the colors a bit more. There. And I select both rectangles at the same time, I can actually extrude these ones. And what it's going to do is actually create like a donut shape. I will be able to see, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the shading option here. But maybe for you that you see the shading, you can see through that opening with no problem. For those that you did an extrusion of two rectangles and you go to the shading or to shade or ghost or any of the options, you can see through the interior. There's basically an opening here. Is that true? Let me repeat that again. And again, I'm going to repeat this oftentimes in the future, so don't worry. I'm creating two rectangles, rectangle, command, click 2 times. I'm pressing enter to repeat the same command, rectangle, or I type again rectangle, and I place it inside. I can select both of those and extrude the curve. That also happens when you're dealing with curves. If I have a curve of any shape and crazy way, and I create another curve, that has, for example, several curves inside, this, I created 4 curves here, one a large one and 3 small ones inside entirely of the previews. All of them are allocated in the same plane, so they're planar, as I said before. Using always the same command, curve, and creating different little funky curves around, I can actually create an extrusion, extrude curves, and it will basically do that shape with 3 openings. Okay. So again, just to repeat, Boolean operations between 2 solids, such as one box and another box. I'm going to move it in here and move it down. So these are actually touching. In this case, it's 2 boxes. I can do a Boolean difference between this guy, enter, and this guy, and it eats out that piece that is common. I'm Control Z there, and I'm going to do the same in the inverse selection. Boolean difference, select this guy first, and then this guy second, and that will be the piece that comes out of that. But third, I have also the Boolean intersection between this guy, enter, and this guy, which gives me the middle common ground. And last, I have the Boolean union, which basically connects them and makes them one single solid. So if I select these 2, I would be able to pour water inside and it would be filled, and it would be just one single container of water. Let's call it that way. That's how you prove it's actually a solid, no? Given that I did a Boolean union, now it's a solid. So I can actually do a torus, for example. Move it vertically into the side, and I can do a Boolean difference between this first one and the second one. And it eats a chunk of it. Unfortunately, it's not that clear to see with a wireframe, but pretty sure I'll repeat this again in the near future so we can see it more clearly. Okay. So I placed one single solid. In this case, it was a combination of 2 Boolean operations. One is a Boolean union, and another one is a Boolean difference. Boolean union of 2 boxes, Boolean difference with the 2 boxes plus a torus that passed by. Before I jump into what I was talking about, the process, the famous process, I want to also talk about a tool that is called Gumball. You might have seen already, and you probably even used it already, but here on the bottom, You can also click on the command Gumball. I don't know if you see it. You can highlight it in bold letters to use it. When you click Gumball and you select any object, you automatically will see this little tool. It's like a gizmo. It's a gizmo that is unique to that selected object. Every selection, this gizmo will appear. What does this gizmo do? It allows you to move the object by clicking on the arrows. As you can imagine, you will be moving in the direction of the arrows. And you can imagine as well that you can move it in 3 different arrows, which is X, Y, and Z. So if you want to move it up or down, you just click on the blue arrow. Front or back is the red, right and left is the green. You might wonder what is X, Y, and Z. The good thing about Rhino is that it also shows you this other gizmo here, which is pretty much telling you the 3 coordinates of the interface. There's also these arcs. Arcs, if you select the arc, keep the mouse press and drag, you will be rotating the object. You can also click one single time to the arc and say 90 to rotate 90 degrees. Or you can click once on the other arc and say 45, and it will rotate 45 degrees in that direction. It makes sense that there are also 3 different arcs for the 3 XYZ planes. You can also click on the arrow once and type a number. That would be the units that you want to move something in that direction. Let's see if I click on the red arrow, I can move this 25. If you want to go in the opposite direction, it's as simple as minus 25. Again, the arrows to move an object. The arcs are to rotate an object. And you can do manual changes or numerical by clicking once. You can also scale by clicking on the little boxes in one direction. You have to click on the box or the little knot there. And also you have scale in the 3 XYZ, no? If you click on any of the knots for scale and press Shift, then you scale in 3 dimensions, basically. If you click once on the scale, you can also say numerical, like 2 would be twice, etc. So the gizmo is a very fast way to move things around and to scale them and test different things.
Whenever I keep cash on me, I keep my.
Yes, hello? Mr. or Miss iPhone?
Sorry, I clicked the button on accident.
No problem. All good?
Yeah.
Nice. So if you want to do like very testing moves or testing scaling and rotating, this is the best tool, Gumball. Almost like a very fast approach to, to test. But if you want to do precise moves, precise rotations, I do recommend that you always insert the command and you say from this point to this other point exactly. That's something also in time you will get to use.